Hello, musicians and music lovers. It is your host, Jeremy Burns. One of your hosts, Jeremy Burns. You heard the intro music. That was actually a live version of our very first bumper track ever, Another Bright Idea. Myself on bass, Brian Malloy on drums, Jerry Chapman on guitar. And I think that's appropriate because that was a very raw live recording. And what you're about to experience is going to be rather raw and rather live-ish. We'll explain more about that as we move on in the show. So I'm sheltering in place in my lonely little basement recording studio. Maybe it's not so lonely now that you guys are here, right? Anyway, since this epidemic set in, I guess roughly the first week of March, somewhere in there, second week of March, Matt and I have been trying to figure out what to do, and we have actually made a couple of cool little videos that we released on our Facebook page and our music Facebook group, as well as YouTube. If you go to our YouTube page, you will see the video of what you're about to hear. Myself and Matt in the flesh, for better or for worse. And yeah, that's it. I think we're going to try and at least give you something regular. I'm going to give you a heads up about the rawness and the audio quality. These are computer microphones. We've since been evolving a little bit, so just bear with us on that. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy our updates, and we're going to tackle a couple of music questions and talk to some listeners and do what we do. So there you have it. The show will go on, and we'll see if we can release these on a fairly regular basis, twice, once a month. I don't know. We'll see. But while we're figuring all that out, stay with us, bear with us, and at some point we're going to be able to get back down here in the studio and give you the regular production value that you're used to. And yeah, I don't think any of us thought that we would still be sheltering in place at this point in the game, but we got to do what we got to do. Matt and I cannot express how much we love you guys and how much we love what we're doing here. Your questions, your curiosity, your responses, your feedback, your engagement, the community, all these things have really contributed to this being one of the most successful music theory podcasts out there. And we can't thank you enough. And yes, we aim to keep it going. So there you have it. We hope you guys are staying happy, healthy, and safe and continuing your music education. So let's get into it. Let's talk about music. Okay, well, this was supposed to be a live episode, but it's not because we're still having
not IT people,
right.
And it didn't exactly work that way.
I had a plan. It just didn't quite go as planned.
Well, let's get this out of the way. If anybody wants to donate to me a better webcam, so you don't have to look at Grano vision, you don't have to see the flea races imposed over my face, then I would be eternally grateful for that. And number two, yeah, we had kind of half a plan for how this is going to work.
Uh-huh. I thought
half a plan probably should have been a whole plan.
Right. I thought you were going to say, if anyone wants to show us how to Facebook stream live from Zoom, that would be great.
That too. If anybody wants to explain to us how to do that.
Okay. So are you recording it all over there? Or is it just my audio?
I cannot record. You have to record. Only the host can record.
Okay. Cool. All right. So anyways, I guess this is going to be like episode 90-A for Apple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If this does go up on the podcast, because we want to give some people something to listen to, let them know that we're still around. We're still going to keep on doing this, We're
still around. We're still here. Things have gotten complicated in the last month, as literally everyone on the planet knows.
Right. And where we used to be able to come down to my little studio and still sit a good distance away from each other, as we mentioned. It's just not the same doing an episode like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've had a little bit of exposure to this kind of thing, as you can imagine, because all of my teaching classes have basically resorted to this in one form or another. And so how does it feel to have? Does it ever get to where it's just as good as meeting face to face? Well, it hasn't for me yet.
No.
It does get easier. It does get sort of easier. You know, I'm learning to look into the camera when I'm talking and not into my screen. So people are like, you know,
Oh yeah, there you are.
Looking down, you know, that's not good. Looking off to the side, you know, your natural impression is to always be looking at your own image, which I find.
Yeah, like it's a mirror.
But that ends up, you know, you end up always looking to the side like this, and it's kind of freaky, you know, and what's so interesting over there. So I'm learning to try to look into the camera more and things. So, you know, you're getting a little used to it the more you do it. But, you know, I definitely look forward to the day when we can meet in Jeremy's home studio again and do our normal podcast just like we've always done, because I miss it.
I know. I'm sitting where you normally sit here.
Yeah.
With my piano. I hope I don't have to use it. In case. I'm ready, just in case.
Now the world can judge Jeremy's piano skills.
Think about that.
Think about
that. Okay. Well, let's talk some music here, man.
I'm a drinker, by the way. Have you seen that thing on the internet, like the 7 types of online meeting person? I'm a drinker.
Me too.
I always got a mug of something sitting here. There's just too much of a comfort level sitting in my own office, you know. So.
Looks like coffee, tastes like whiskey. Well, I guess we're going to kind of shoot for a 30-minute episode. We'll see how this goes, man.
Okay.
Let's see here. You know, we're going to catch up. We're going to read a listener mail or two, maybe. Keep that kind of thing going. And if anything, this is going to be an exploration into what could potentially be the next couple of months in our world here.
Podcasting, yeah. Well, we better get used to it now, you know. I mean, we took the month of April off, but we don't want to do that for consecutive months. So something has to happen.
Yeah, as long as people are still supporting us on Patreon and stuff like that, I do feel like we need to produce something, you know.
I agree. We got to do the best we can.
Let's see here, Matt. Let's just catch up a bit here, man. How you been?
I've been all right. You know, if it wasn't for the stress of everything going on in the world, the mere fact of having to stay in my house for 2 months poses no problem to me whatsoever. I'm not one of these cabin fever type of people, and I guess I'm fortunate in that I've been just hanging out. You know, I've been still at work by and large. So, you know, my semester is just wrapping up with an online version of my last final, which is up as we speak, for them to be completing by the end of the week sometime. And so you know, I've largely been still at work. Just the location has changed. Been composing when I have a chance. You know, been talking to my composition students as much as I can, and trying to keep their careers, you know, which are just sort of getting, you know, they're kind of the burning rubber phase of the race right now, you know, and kind of trying to make sure they still get from that to the moving forward stage,
right,
of the race in reasonable time. And that's just kind of been my life. We get all our groceries shipped to us now, you know. Everything that comes in the house gets sanitized to the nth degree. I wash my hands so much. I think they're really starting to have aged my hands like 10 years in 2 months.
Yeah, we got our little water Everclear solution that we sprayed out some of them.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. So and that's just kind of been us. You know, when we started, I was watching the news pretty obsessively, and then I kind of learned that wasn't really good for my emotional health so much. So I kind of backed off on a lot of news. You know, and try to give myself a half hour in the morning to read news, and then be done with it for the rest of the day. It just makes everything easier when I'm not getting deluged.
Oh, I'm so pissy in the morning. That's probably the worst time for me to do that. I'm learning that I'm more pissy when I wake up, and that's the worst time to be doing that.
You may be onto something there. Maybe I ought to do it at night. Well, if I do it at night, I'll get pissy, and then I won't be able to go to sleep.
Right.
What are you going to do? No news is good news. I find that in a half hour, I will learn anything that I really feel like I need to know, and be spared the rabbit hole that is the American news media in this day and age, which is, I think it's safe to say, it's not always good for you, no matter what your ideologies or opinions may be. So
right. Well, man,
what have you guys been up to?
About the same. Heather's kind of been our lifeline. I got to give a shout out to my wife, Heather, and I guess a happy post Mother's Day, happy late Mother's Day. But yeah, she's been out. She's been able to work. She did Uber before all this, and even though they're not doing Uber rides or Lyft, I guess, she's still able to do food delivery and have some kind of income around here, while I'm waiting for the next gig. I had a job.
I have to shout out to Fran too, because she's been cooking everything we eat, and I'm eating better than I feel like I have any right to. And, she's been cooking. She's been desanitizing things. She's been dealing with my panic attacks and occasional freakouts, and she is a real saint, a real trooper.
She's a psychiatrist, an accountant, a chef.
The chef.
Boy, oh boy. Got the package, man.
Psychiatrist, accountant, chef, spiritual advisor, best friend person. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, other than that, I've just been trying to... I haven't completely taken a vacation from the show, even though we haven't been putting up a bunch of episodes here. I've been trying to refigure out the website. It's a long story, but I had to redesign the website. So I've been trying to figure out how to write code. It's been quite an experience, learning experience. But anyways, that and just trying to think about ways to improve the show. I've been going back and listening to old episodes and just trying to find ways. Always self-critiquing. Do
you find those first episodes really awkward now? Because I do.
I thought about actually doing those first two over again, where it's not just me and then just you, where it's actually both of us. I thought about that.
And even some of the ones where it was both of us, it felt like we were so stiff back in the beginning compared to now. We've loosened up a lot.
Well, it's kind of...
hey, if you would like for us to redo those episodes, email us and voice your support for that. It's something we might take into consideration.
And speaking of emails, we have a couple here today. And we'll be able to take a little...
So long.
I know. It's kind of fun. The listener mails, as we mentioned before, is our favorite part of the show.
Everybody else's least favorite part. It's like, come on, get to the music stuff. But...
Well, now, we've had 3 complaints, okay? 3 people have complained since we've been doing this, okay? But they're all the same complaint.
Get through the mail faster. Yeah.
So we might actually start thinking about that kind of thing, We can talk about this another episode, but it might be that we start doing the listener mail at the end or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
But all that to say, just know that we're trying to work on ways to improve the show. And when we come back, we want to come in hot and really knock everyone's socks off.
Absolutely.
Here's a funny thing. We haven't released an episode. We didn't really release an episode for April, right? So, or really in May, come to think of it. So all through May, our numbers started going down. And then here in April, our numbers are starting to go up. Our down. So you know what that means?
A lot of people self-isolating and in quarantine and needing some good podcasts.
And realizing no new episodes are coming out. So now they're deciding to go back and do what I did and listen to the old episodes, which is actually what you need to do. You can't just hear an episode once and know everything,
Well, we've said this before, but everything bears repeating under the circumstances. We do recommend that you start with episode 1 and listen in something approaching chronological order, right? You can probably skip some if they don't apply to you directly or interest you directly. But by and large, we do recommend you starting at the beginning to sort of get your theory chops built up, because by episode 70 or 73, we are just casually mentioning things like the diatonic scale or secondary dominance. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to be lost in that conversation. And we try to harken back to which episode those are, but the best thing is definitely to listen to some chronological order anyway. So, there you go. And re-listens would definitely be helpful to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Some of our listeners are actually taking notes and going to the website, musicstudent101.com, checking out the graphics and actually taking notes and making their own exercises. So people, the more you get into it, the more you give it, the more you'll get, I think.
Yeah. And there are multiple levels of immersion, and, just you can find the level that is right for you. I think some people just like to hear us converse, and then other people are absolutely taking notes and really trying to educate themselves on theory. So, just find the level that's right for you and go that way.
And speaking of our listeners, I want to give a couple of shout outs, okay?
Okay, let's do that.
So our friend Chris Owen and Cheryl Anderson in Australia are always playing music. You see them shooting videos, and they're really doing this whole thing where you can see them pretty often. Check them out. Anderson Lane is the name of the band.
They just a great CD, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They gave us a CD, and we actually played. It was either episode 70 or 80. Our listener compositions episode, I think it was 70 that we played some of their original music. But check them out, man. They're always playing music.
Awesome CD.
Alexandro Caligaris, you'll see him playing a lot. He's always putting out videos.
Yeah, our resident shred master general. That guy, man, his chops.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
I mean, wow. But yeah.
He's also been hanging out with a lovely young lady who's he sent me some of her singing. And she's got some really good talent.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Congratulations, Alexandra. Badri, our friend Badri Ramahan from India, has a cool thing going on. He said he was accepted into the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts.
Yay! Woo!
Yeah, right? Woo-hoo!
Congratulations.
That institute was founded by Paul McCartney. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's like.
Yeah, so congratulations to Bobby. That is a remarkable achievement. His music education is about to intensify rapidly.
I know. Maybe he'll be listening more and more.
Yeah, or maybe he won't have time.
I don't know, man. He's a pretty great musician. I think he's got the musician thing down. Sounds like he's got a pretty good grasp on theory too.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I'm happy to hear that.
Speaking of a grasp on theory, we have another listener, Sebastian Hamill, who came up with another order of sharps. Fat Charlie gets drunk at every bar.
Fat Charlie gets drunk at every bar. Yeah, that works. Yeah, nice. Fat Charlie gets drunk at every bar. Why are we going to remember that one more?
I don't know. I told him that was my college experience. Might have absorbed a lot more if not for that.
Not that we frequented bars at all when we were in college. Okay, moving on. Okay, so dig this, man. We actually have a couple of questions. Even though we can't do this live, sadly, we will at some point figure out how to do it live. But we want to, and yeah.
We do have a couple of questions. Did you get the emails I sent you, Matt?
I did, and allow me to, and you can't see my screen, but I could change if it was absolutely necessary, but I can pull those up.
I'll tell you a little bit about Danny, and then I'll let you read his question. How about that?
Sounds great. So let's see. Yeah, questions on chord substitutions. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Danny would actually be joining in live if not for our little problem, our technological inadequacies. But anyway, Danny Pippin is actually kind of a neighbor of ours. He lives in Macon, Georgia.
Oh, very nice.
He used to play in a shred, like a metal band, and they would tour around the Southeast. He said he used to enjoy coming to Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah.
Just south of here, because people really loved him over there. They really dug their music. They did really well there. He started picking up guitar around 11. He is now 37 years old. And he's a big fan of the modulations episode that we did. You remember that episode, Matt?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. What else? Okay. Oh, he also plays drums and bass. So we got a guitar player who plays drums and bass. I mean, that's kind of like that's kind of the toolkit, right? That's the ideal toolkit.
Yeah. Well, then you can start making your own albums once you have guitar, drums, and bass down. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait. Speaking of which, holy crap, Danny Pip, he just commented on our post. This is funny. This is kind of live because he posted. Okay. Anyways, I can't find it. Now my computer's getting all wonky.
Okay. I bet I'm going to look for it too. Oh, come on.
But it's funny because we were just talking about you, Danny. You see what you can find what he says. This is like semi-live.
Yeah, kind of semi-live. I imagine he's probably giving us all kinds of grief for being so techno incompetent as we are. But yeah.
Who could blame him if he was?
Yeah, because I mean I can't even find his post. That's how terrible I am.
Hey, well, anyways, do you want to get on with this question?
Yeah, we probably should get on with this question. Okay, so Danny Piven says, I have been a patron for almost 6 months ago. I asked you guys to do a mini episode on non-diatonic / chromatic chord substitutions. I know the tritone sub and secondary dominant / leading tone chords fall in this category, as well as augmented sixth and the Neapolitan sixth chords. But if you guys could talk about some non-diatonic / chromatic substitutions other than the ones mentioned above in your Q&A, we might could consider that my mini episode, depending on how in-depth you guys get.
Well, how in-depth can we get? Because I do want to do an episode on this. Well, I don't know. Yeah, a Patreon episode. We haven't been able to get back to those either, but I think it would be worth our while to do a Patreon episode on that at least.
Right. So you hear, and we can, and we will. You hear the term chord substitution, and that can mean an awful lot of different things. You know, depending on whether you're playing classical or jazz or what. In my mind and in my training, chord substitution is using a chord that will have the same harmonic function. So the primary triads form sort of the basis of tonal harmony, right? So 1, 4, 5. Mm-hmm. 1, 4, 5. Each one of those represents the tonic, predominant, and dominant function. And in my mind, at least, now, like I said, you hear this a lot, and people use this term and be talking about different things. But in my mind, the basics of substitution is using a different chord than 1, 4, and 5 to fulfill that harmonic function. Okay. So
you got the tonic, you got the predominant, you got the dominant.
Right.
Those three main.
Not those chords, but those. Right. The tonic function, the predominant function, and the dominant function. Yeah. So, and 1 is a tonic, 4 is predominant, and 5 is dominant. So he mentioned a lot of chromatic chord substitutes. The augmented sixth, the Neapolitan sixth, the secondary dominants, the 5 of 5, the tritone substitutions, which are effectively 7 of 5. Those things, we call them chromatic because to create those chords, we need notes from outside our scale. If we're in the key of G major and we want to make an augmented sixth chord, we're not going to find those notes in the G major scale. We're going to have to bring in others. Ergo, there are chromatic chord substitutions. Okay. Diatonic chord substitutions, which he mentioned, would be those chord substitutions that we can effectively do in the scale. For example, rather than 4, we might have 2 in first inversion. In G major, rather than go G and then C. Yeah, listen to that. Yeah.
That was a G and C.
G, and rather than go G, C, D. Parallel fifths, but okay. We might go G, A minor, D. Yeah, see, and that kind of has a different little sort of sweet feel to it, right?
Yeah.
We might even go G, A minor in first inversion with the C in the bass.
Uh-huh. Right on.
Yeah. See, and that is a diatonic chord substitution because it filled the same function as that four did. And in fact, when you did the first inversion, it had the same note of bass.
Uh-huh.
For that reason, it would be a diatonic substitution for the four chord. Now, why is the two chord a diatonic substitution for the four? Well, because of laws of counterpoint and things, it goes back a long, long way. But effectively, in modern times, it's simple to think of two as the two chord as having two of the same notes as that four chord, right? So if our four chord was C and E and G, and A minor has A and C and E, it has two of the same notes already.
Common tones.
So, right, yeah. So rather than just using a G and making a C major chord, we have used an A and made an A minor chord. So we've only shifted really one note, and we've really only shifted that note by a diatonic step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a common substitution for the one is six, and we talk a lot about deceptive cadences, right? Exactly, yeah, that last chord being a six. So instead of going back to the one from five, we have gone to the six from five. We have done that, by way of the fact that six, assuming we're still in G major, six in G major is an E minor chord, E, G, and B. So again, having two of the same notes as our tonic chord, which would be G, B, and D. Yeah. So these are diatonic chord substitutions, and you can start thinking of your own, right? What is another good substitution for one? Well, what about three? Wouldn't that also have two of the same notes? Well, yes.
So it'd be 1, 4, 5. 3 and G.
Yeah, B minor.
B minor, yeah.
It's a little more weird, but it's still but it's still an active substitution. So you can start thinking of your own. If what you're trying to do is create diatonic chord substitutions, which, if I remember correctly, is what Danny is asking about. Let me make sure that non-diatonic / chromatic, other than the ones mentioned above in your Q&A. So so let's get to Danny's real question. Other non-diatonic, / chromatic chords, chord substitutions. You'll notice that the ones we did mention, the German augmented six, the Neapolitan six, these are all predominant functioning chords, right?
Okay. Yeah. So they'll come before the 5 chord, right? Or the dominant chord.
Before the 5 chord. Other chromatic substitutions, are things like, like, for example, the diminished 7, which someone else recently asked about in an email, where it is just a 5 chord without the actual scale to be 5, right? It's a 5/7 chord without that. You can talk about in terms of chord substitutions, things like extended harmonies, 5/9 or 5 augmented. A very common one, right? The 5 augmented chord. Others, replacing any one, of one quality with any one of another. So in a lot of jazz, one major 7 is replaced with one flat 7, and that's extraordinarily so typical that they don't even consider it a dissonance, really.
Right. So a major minor 7 chord, which is non-diatonic to a major scale.
Right. Yeah. But who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
It happens so often it's forgiven, especially in jazz, mainly jazz, right?
In jazz. Now, in classical music, a lot of rules tend to govern these things. But in jazz music, especially, it's considered almost a consonant. The 1 to flat 7. Things, chromatic substitutions around the 6. You can talk about the flat 6, or the sharp 6. The major 6 in a major mode, the minor 6 in a minor mode. These are chord substitutions that have that don't eliminate the function of what you're of the chord, but chromatically alter their quality.
Yeah.
And again, in classical music, there would be some hard and fast rules about these things, but in just about everything else, they are. I'm looking at Danny's post. I got it on the thing.
Yeah. What does he say?
He just says, "What happened to the live stream, guys?"
Danny.
our technical, it is. We are now recording, and
it's poor preparation, basically. I think
poor preparation on our part.
Yeah, but here we are, kind of.
Here we are, kind of. Yeah, and talking about Danny's question, even.
Yeah.
So changing the quality, changing the playing with the extended harmonies that go above it. When you get into sharp 9, flat 13, that kind of in those kind of extended harmonies, there is rarely any hard and fast rules. It becomes a little bit the Wild West, and you can a little bit do what you want. Again, if you were writing in a classical style, you might have to resolve those into certain. But really, substitutions in my mind have to do with the function. Something that can still function the same, and then just be a different chord or be chromatically altered in some way like that. Now you will see people that will tell you can replace this with a that and a that with this, to the point where it becomes no system. I have absolutely seen that. At which point it becomes a situation of, you're just making up chords at that point, right? Which is fine. You can just make up chords, let the theorists decide how to explain it. But you're not really creating a modus operandi that's doing anything, really beyond making up chords at some point. I've seen people bring in modal substitution, so the quality of the mode of the bringing like the Phrygian 2, so a flat 2 to replace a 2 and things like that. Also very, very good. Yeah, but to me, your options lay in saying what else could function this way. So just if you're wanting to substitute a particular chord somewhere, I would say just ask yourself that question. Well, what else could function this way? And you'll be doing well for yourself.
I kind of have a grab bag that I go to. It's like, the first thing I'm going to go to substitute a 1 for me is going to be the 6, but that's just me.
Right.
Or the 3 and the 1 kind of go together. So I sometimes like to do those back and forth together,
Right.
But yeah. I think maybe depending on your style or your personality or your composing, mood or whatever, that might kind of lend itself to what is in your grab bag,
Sure.
But the main thing, right, the function is the key, right? I mean, non-diatonic functions or substitutions, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't even think about it, but yeah, I guess when we were talking about what am I trying to say? When we were talking about the chromatic substitutions, I wasn't really registering the fact that there are diatonic substitutions where 2 could actually substitute 4.
Right.
One could substitute 6. When I was thinking substitutions, I was thinking chords from a different place, like from chromatic, but I didn't think about diatonic. So it's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to recap.
Absolutely, yeah. And Danny mentioned all of the really big chromatic chord substitutions from classical music anyway, and his very, the German augmented sixth, the French augmented sixth, and Italian augmented sixth. The secondary dominant, the secondary seventh chord, some others. So the TLDR of this whole question, then some other chromatic chord substitutions. What about there's the idea of the non-functioning diminished seven chord, which is a chord created entirely out of counterpoint. It does not have function.
Okay.
Its entire business, usually it has a tritone, there's a tritone inherent in the seven chord, seven chord, a diminished seven chord. So that tritone is either moving up in parallel tritones or down in parallel tritones, and it just functions as a result of that parallel motion, usually. The common tone diminished seven chord, in which you take a note out of the chord you're on, and make that note a chord tone and a diminished chord that then is created after. And as long as it holds one note from that previous chord, it sort of just functions that way and tends to go back.
Right.
So, for example, if I'm playing a good old C major chord, go ahead and play us a good old C major.
Oh, all right, here we go.
And then I decide C is going to be in my diminished chord, so I'm going to play A, C, E flat, G flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C is still in the bass.
Yeah, and then go back to C.
And then go back to C. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, kind of cool, huh?
Uh-huh. Then... Huh.
Yeah. Kind of, and there are examples of it not going back to C, but then taking a note from that diminished chord and then creating a new diminished chord. So taking E flat and say, okay, now I'm going to be, I'm going to be
E flat,
F, A flat, and C flat. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anytime you're going to boring old C major in your song, do A diminished instead, or E flat diminished instead.
Mike, you might dig it. Who knows?
You might dig it. Yeah. What are some others? The neo-Riemannian analysis makes of a substitute anything really that is a minor or major third away in any direction, and we talked about that in one episode, if I remember correctly. The diatonic and chromatic third substitutions.
Right.
So think about that. Instead of playing C, boring old C major, what about slightly less boring E minor 7?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so instead of playing a C,
yeah,
at an E minor 7, which is... Wow. No. Yeah. There we go, without the C.
Yeah, there you go. So some common chord substitutions. There are others that I'm blanking on in a minute, man. Wow. I wonder if I've got my Roy Francoli around here anywhere. Fucker's around here somewhere. Come on. Sitting behind a library, and what good is it doing me?
Those are running.
I can think of some more and email Danny.
Yeah.
As I think of them, but yeah, they're sort of a basic grasp on the concept of substitution.
The conversation will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably need to do a podcast about this, frankly.
I think so.
Like a whole episode.
There's some clarifications I think that we could have been a little bit stronger about. I think learning after the fact.
Yeah.
One of our listeners, Francois Bruel from France, mentioned that maybe we didn't show as much love to the minor key.
Yeah.
As we do to the major key.
Yeah. And I love minor. I probably prefer minor keys.
Me too.
Why do we do that? Well, I guess there's an impetus to always say, well, that which is true in major is true in minor, and
they said that. They mentioned that.
Once you've taken some precursory considerations into effect, like the minor 5 being raised from major and all that, that holds true. What is true in major is true in minor. So we just didn't say, okay, all of this also happens in minor in exactly the same way.
Because the functions are all, 2 is still predominant.
Yeah, the functions are all the same.
Right.
Yeah. Especially in classical music where they happen to, and we had a listener email us about this and directly talk about, once you take into account that in classical music, at least the 7th scale degree of natural minor, which is a whole step away from tonic, is actually raised most often to a leading tone, only a half step away from tonic. This has the effect of making what would be a minor 5 chord a major 5 chord.
Right.
And so now, really all of the rules still apply, and everything still functions the way it would in major. So we tend to think of major as simpler, and ergo, learn the concept with major, and then it will apply to minor. We'll start using some more minor keys.
Yeah. Or maybe we can do an episode called A Few Minor Details and actually cover that. I'm excited about that. Show some minor love.
Yeah.
Hey, well, we started this a little bit late, and we're not live, so technically we could go on if we wanted to, but we do have one more question from a listener.
Okay, let's do that.
Who actually wrote in specifically for this live chat, although Eamon Kelly will not be able to join us live. They'll be checking in later on. So let me read this question for you, okay?
As well, yeah.
Okay, so Eamon Kelly, who we all met before, he was in episode 70, our first listener compositions episode. Had a great little piece called, let's see here. Oh, Doubtful Resolve. That was it. It was very nice, kind of that piano piece, kind of like a Beethoven.
Yeah, that's coming back to me. Yeah.
Well, Eamon Kelly is from Baltimore. He cut his teeth on classic rock, but is now into progressive rock like Dream Theater, Hacken. And he's been with us for quite some time.
Mangini or Portnoy? I want your opinion.
What's that?
Mangini or Portnoy for Dream Theater drummers? I want your opinion. I want his opinion.
We'll see what he says.
I'm assuming you don't have an opinion.
No, not really. I just know it's all music I can't do. Cool music I can't do.
Yeah, really.
Eamon might be stoked to hear.
Alejandro can probably do it. Eamon might can do it.
Hey, you learned one of his the bass lines, didn't you? For that for our episode.
I did.
Favorite bass lines?
Trying to be modest, but all
right. All right. So, anyways, Eamon says, I know you talked a bit about evoking mood, and maybe this was a Patreon episode that we did actually.
Yeah.
But one thing I struggle with is identifying how to create certain moods / sounds. I know that realistically the answer is for me to play more, try out more progressions, timbres, arrangements, etc., and study pieces and moods that I like. But that's also an endless, lifelong progression, right?
Yeah, tell me about it.
Okay, so anyways, how would you each say you approach songwriting and composing? How much of what you write comes from a known sound, aka you know how to create the mood, sound, style you want, versus experimentation or working on a concept from the ground up, aka cool progression, melody, riffs that breeds an idea and maybe creates a new mood or sound that you weren't expecting? So I'm wondering if you, as you learn more, you shift more towards being able to create what you envision. I suppose this will vary likely from musician to musician, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be cool to hear how you two feel about it personally. You got that?
Big question. Yeah, you wanna go first?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. It is a lifetime progression process of getting to the point where you can do this. But for example, you remember when we had our friend Craig Brandwine over? Mm-hmm. He very much pulled out of nowhere the moods that we were asking him for. We were like, hey, there's a chase scene, da 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 da, and he's like, bup, 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 you know.
Yeah, he was very good at going to that part of his mental Rolodex and pulling out the suspense card or the or the romance card or yeah.
Now here's what I'm not sure about. I mean, I have some ideas, but like we've been watching movies, cartoons, all that stuff all of our life with music backdrops that are kind of designed to fit and match the mood of the scene that we're watching.
Sure.
Right? So which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? I mean, did we find out somehow Minor just said, pensive, thoughtful, sad, whatever. Major meant celebratory, happy somehow. I have a feeling that, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a very good question. But I know that when I'm composing music, if I say that I want to do something sad, I would rarely start off with a major chord. And if I do, it's not long before that goes to a 3 or to a 6 or something in the minor feel.
So you sort of got a mood in your brain and you're looking for the chords that will help you with that.
Yes.
You're looking for the musical materials that will symbolize that mood. And so, you have a little bit, you're relying on some knowledge and experience here of, okay, well, major chords aren't going to sound very sad, so let's start with the minor chord, and then you can string too many minor chords together and go from sad to just maudlin and whiny, and, right? I mean, I've had this experience.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's sort of tailor, and we've got this mood that we're trying to go for. So let's try to use our knowledge to tailor that mood. Mm-hmm. Am I hearing that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the main thing. I mean, I kind of have a set idea in my head of how to put certain things together.
Yeah. And a set idea of what you want it to be like, mood-wise and tone-wise.
Right. Like when I just got out of high school and I was still kind of always struggling with music. But if someone said, what's a certain, like a triumphant progression? Well, in my head, I might have had it. I was hearing it in my head, but now I can actually say, oh, that would be a 1, 4, 5, whatever, Yeah. I think the more you get used to the sound of certain chord progressions, the more we'll just come up with it on the fly, as opposed to having to do the process of elimination.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That has been my experience. Is that when I was first beginning to compose, I would have an idea or a sound in mind. What would happen to me when I first began to compose is when I had a particular mood in mind or a particular feel or sound that I wanted, I would go to try to do that. And because I didn't really know a whole lot about music at that time, I was so shooting in the dark that I almost never got it right.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I would end up doing instead of what I would be end up being most excited about was when I did kind of what the opposite, the other thing that Damon was saying is well, I'm just going to put these chords together and see what they sound like. Mm-hmm. Right? And then I'll put them together and say, oh, well, this sounds really good. Let's see if I can build on that, or let's see if I can keep that sort of mood going, or let's see if I can shift that subtly or whatever, And when I was beginning, that happened much more often simply because I didn't have the experience to do the other. I didn't have the experience to say, okay, I've got this kind of emotional state and this is the musical material that's going to symbolize that emotional state. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the experience. As I gained the experience, and I gained the experience with a lot of imitating the music I like,
Yeah.
Well, I like Beethoven symphonies. Let's see if I can write a symphony that sounds like that. I like Dream Theater. Let's see if I can, write music that sounds like that. I like, let's see if I can. It almost never would have fooled anyone, but through that imitation, I was learning what the different sounds sounded like, what the different moods were, right? Mm-hmm. And it is a lifelong process, and I am certainly not at the end of it, nor do I ever want to be. But as I've learned more, it's gotten easier for me to say, well, okay, I recently took a tour of Sloss Furnace here in Birmingham, which is from the old steel industry past of our city. It's abandoned now, but has been preserved as a historical landmark. It's over 100 years old, I would think, and you can walk through there, and it's a very ghostly place. It's a very empty kind of place, and I could say, okay, well, walking through that place, I feel this, and then I can go back home and think, well, how am I going to create that in a musical composition? And now, having done it for a while, I'm better at saying, well, all right, not just chords, but chords, melody, instruments, timbre, duration of things and all that. I can sort of put it all together and say, and be fairly good at doing what I feel like is a recreation of what I felt. And that took experience.
Yeah.
That took that process of going through, really just imitating music I liked.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
And just doing that for a while until I started getting some things. And I have some grab bag go-to things. And, composition is always a process. Sometimes my first idea doesn't really work the way I want it. And I'll think, well, what else can I do? Would a different chord work there? Or would a different key?
A different substitution.
Is there a substitution I can make here that would make some difference? Yeah, absolutely. Did I modulate to a key that was not the one I really wanted to modulate to? Those kind of things still. There's still the kind of things going through my head. When I'm sitting down to write.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Yeah. I don't really do as much now of putting some things together and saying, oh, well, that sounds neat. Because I kind of have a better idea of what it's going to sound like before I put it together, I guess.
Right.
Although I do occasionally still do that. I do occasionally still kind of sit down and, kind of get hit with an inspiration and think, oh, wow, that's really good. And let's see if I can go with that.
Sure. As you should, right?
Yeah. But it's usually, something I'm struck by as I'm just playing piano, and I think, oh, well, that's really cool. I wonder if I could, and then the way my brain works is immediately, well, what's cool about it? What is it that I like about it? And then can I expound on that and analyze that a little bit.
On the latter part of his question, I think an example of when that's come across my songwriting and composing is when we have these episodes. And as we got further into the theory and started doing like weirder chords, like the Neapolitans, the augmented chords, I was like, okay, well, now I have to compose a piece with this music, with these chords in it, right? These progressions. Right. So I didn't have any idea how it would sound until I did it. Yeah. But that was an exercise for me, right?
Yeah.
With cool results, because now I learned. No, honestly, to me, it all ended up sounding just weird, right? But different colors of weird and things that you can use if you want to have a weird mood.
Well, here's the thing about, incorporating new concepts. New concepts rarely and should rarely completely redefine your sound or your style or your aesthetic, right? Mm-hmm. When you say, well, I'm going to use augmented six chords for this thing because we're talking about augmented sixes today, you're not going to write anything that sounds 100% completely 180 from anything you've ever written before just because you're using an augmented six chord now, right? You're going to incorporate the augmented six chord into what you already know and what you're already comfortable with, and that's how your individual writing voice grows is by incorporating things, theory ideas, new styles to listen to. I'm a big believer in listen to absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Lose this attitude. It's like, well, this is not the kind of music I'm interested in doing, so I won't. You don't know what you can get from something, right? So as you incorporate new theory ideas, new musical styles, new musical influences from your environment, you go to a concert, it's like, wow, that bass player is extraordinarily good. This has happened to us, right?
Yeah, right.
All of these things become your voice, your personal voice.
Right. Good point.
Yeah. There you go. I hope that answers this question.
I think so.
Okay.
It should be something that's always growing and mutating and evolving. And I like what you said about listening to other music, because there are certainly genres of music that I don't get as excited about.
Sure.
But when someone's playing that on the radio, instead of being like, turn that crap off,
Right.
I'm like, okay, I'll just go into analysis mode. I'm leaving enjoyment mode. I'm going to go into analysis mode, so I can still gain something from this,
Absolutely. We all have our personal taste.
Yeah.
You do, I do. We all have our personal taste. But yeah, there are definitely times when you can be listening to music not because it's your favorite music in the world to be listening to, but to sort of be trying to understand and get something out of it on an intellectual or an aesthetic level.
Mm-hmm.
Everything exists because somebody somewhere likes it.
Right.
Musical styles that was liked by literally no one disappear, right?
Yeah, sadly, yes.
So
unless you want to be ironic, then you can bring it back
to be ironic.
To be ironic.
But even that, you're only being ironic because somebody out there appreciates your irony, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I think we're getting close to feature length here, man.
Yeah, probably.
And I know in today's attention spans, people probably have moved on. Maybe not. I don't know. I hope
you can pause it. We didn't do it live, so
that's true. That's the beauty of it. Pause it, come back to it. I need to go get back with Danny and let him know what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's get back to that.
And I think this was a cool thing. I enjoyed it. It's great just talking to you and
absolutely
again. And I think we can sort this thing out and get this live thing going. Maybe the problem was trying to mix Zoom and Facebook together.
And those who didn't talk well with each other. Yeah.
I don't know. But either way, at least we have something for the month of May to share.
It almost felt like a podcast.
It almost felt like a podcast.
It really is good to get back and talking music with you again.
And even if we can't get the live stream thing down, which I know we can at some point, it's still cool to kind of have this experience. We can still answer questions. We just can't see your little heart pop up and float across the screen.
And I want little hearts, so we gotta get this.
We gotta have the hearts
straightened out.
All right, man. Well, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Guys and girls and others, just hang in there. Be safe. Wash your hands. We're all in this together, and we will all get through it.
Yeah. And thanks again, Danny and Eamon, for writing in to help supplement this wonderful moment in time.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all take care.